precision. In response, Steve demonstrates high-level weapon disarm techniques rooted in Silat and Filipino martial arts, sweeping the blade away, trapping the arm, and controlling the center line of the fight. Every movement has a purpose. There are no wasted motions, no dramatic flourishes, only pure, calculated tactical execution. Beyond his bodily martial arts, any serious analysis of Captain America must address his primary weapon and tool, the Vibranium shield. The shield is often viewed as a simple defensive barrier or a glorified boomerang, but in the hands of Steve Rogers, it becomes an extension of his central nervous system and a masterclass in kinetic physics. Because the shield is composed of vibranium, it absorbs kinetic energy and vibrations, allowing it to defy traditional friction laws when ricocheting off hard surfaces. However, making the shield hit 4 targets and return precisely to his hand requires complex, instantaneous spatial geometry calculations that Steve performs subconsciously in the heat of battle. He uses the shield to alter the momentum of his body, planting it into the ground to absorb massive falls, or using its edge as a concentrated force multiplier to penetrate armor. It serves as both a defensive wall and a lethal razor, seamlessly transitioning between blocking, striking, throwing, and parrying. As we move into Captain America Civil War, Steve's fighting style faces its ultimate moral and physical test. He is forced to fight his allies, most notably Tony Stark in the Siberian bunker. This fight presents a fascinating contrast between artificial intelligence, predictive algorithms, and pure human combat instinct. Iron Man's suit analyzes Steve's fight patterns in real time to counter his moves. Yet Steve adapts on the fly, breaking predictable rhythms, using his environment, and combining his attacks with Bucky Barnes to overload the suit's targeting systems. When brought to his knees, bleeding and exhausted, Steve utters the iconic line he first said as a frail kid in Brooklyn, "I can do this all day." It proves that while his techniques had evolved to absolute perfection, his underlying psychological anchor remained untouched. In Avengers, Infinity War and Endgame, we observe the final apex form of Steve Rogers. Fighting on the battlefields of Wakanda and against the army of Thanos, Steve is no longer just a martial artist. He's a wartime commander navigating apocalyptic threats. His combat style becomes darker, heavier, and more pragmatic. The crowning moment of his warrior arc occurs in Avengers Endgame when he lifts Mjolnir, proving himself worthy of the power of Thor. What makes this sequence so extraordinary from a choreography perspective is how Steve instantly integrates an entirely new, magical weapon into his established combat system. He does not fight like Thor, who often swings the hammer with wild, thunderous, broad strokes. Instead, Steve combines Mjolnir with his vibranium shield in a sophisticated dual-wielding style. He bounces the hammer off the shield to create shockwaves, uses the hammer to launch the shield with double the velocity, and chains lightning attacks directly into his martial arts combos. It is the absolute pinnacle of combat intelligence, beyond his individual combat mastery and biomechanical evolution. Another crucial dimension elevates Captain America above nearly every other warrior in the Marvel Cinematic Universe: his role as a tactical force multiplier and battlefield commander. Steve Rogers does not merely engage enemies in isolated combat. He actively reads the geometry of the entire battlefield, managing squad dynamics, threat prioritization, and defensive positioning under extreme pressure. We see this tactical genius operating at peak capacity during the Battle of New York. While individual heroes like Thor, Hulk, and Iron Man possess exponentially greater raw power, it is Steve who immediately assumes command, assigning specific roles based on each member's unique skill set. He directs Hawkeye to high ground for perimeter oversight, instructs Iron Man to bottleneck the portal, and unleashes Hulk for raw crowd control. In tactical warfare, this is known as command and control efficiency. Steve acts as the central processor of the team, turning a chaotic swarm of godlike individuals into a synchronized military unit. This tactical command extends even into his micro-interactions on the field. Notice how in Avengers, Age of Ultron and Civil War, he continuously coordinates double-team maneuvers, using his shield as a launch pad for Black Widow, or directing Thor's hammer strikes into his shield to create directional shockwaves. He does not just fight beside his allies, he enhances their combat efficiency. Furthermore, what makes Captain America's fights resonate so deeply with audiences on a visceral level is the real-world physical craftsmanship behind his action sequences. When directors Joe and Anthony Russo took over the franchise alongside legendary stunt coordinator Sam Hargrave, they made a conscious cinematic decision to ground Steve's combat in practical stunts rather than heavy computer-generated imagery. Chris Evans and his stunt team underwent months of intense training in parkour, practical martial arts, tactical knife fighting, and wire work. Every punch, fall, and shield throw carries physical weight, inertia, and tangible consequence. Unlike heroes who float through digitally rendered skies, Steve Rogers collides with concrete, bleeds, and feels the brutal impact of every hit. This grounded, practical approach creates an authentic connection between the viewer and the character, emphasizing human endurance over invincible godhood. Ultimately, Steve Rogers represents the pinnacle of human achievement within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He proved that physical power without discipline is chaotic, but power guided by tactical intelligence, continuous learning, and an unwavering moral compass creates an invincible spirit. He did not become a hero because of a serum created in a lab. He became a hero because a small boy from Brooklyn refused to give up, learned how to fight, and never stopped evolving. When we look back at the entire cinematic arc of Steve Rogers, his legacy is not defined by the serum or the Vibranium shield. It is defined by the absolute alignment of mind, body, and spirit. He took human vulnerability and pushed it to its absolute limits through relentless discipline, tactical intelligence, and an unshakable moral foundation. He showed us that a true hero is not someone who never falls, but someone who possesses the unbreakable will to stand back up, look destiny in the eye, and say, "I can do this all day." Thank you for watching this deep dive on NovaVerse. Which character's fighting style or storyline should we analyze next? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subscribe to NovaVerse for more in-depth cinematic analysis. Hit the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming documentaries. Until next time, stay legendary.